Hello, and welcome to Improbable Things. I'm J. Grace Pennington, and this is my podcast where I share 6 improbable thoughts before breakfast, which means 6 thoughts about reading, writing, or just storytelling in general. So I have 6 thoughts ready after having been away for quite a while, but I'm ready to get started. So yes, I know it's been a long time since I recorded an episode. This past week, I again was caught a cold and had lost my voice. And so that messed up things for a little bit. And then also I've been dealing with some health issues that kind of required me to prioritize sleep if I could. And so getting up really early to record this, some of those weeks just wasn't really the correct priority. So but I'm here now, glad to be here with an update, and I do have lots to update y'all on. So number 1, quite a few weeks ago, I sent the first half of my work in progress time stream to my editor, and I finally feel like I got more momentum built up the last few weeks. I know I had talked about how I was really struggling, and again, I think partly the fatigue from health issues and stuff was to blame for some of that, and also just, I go through spells where it's harder to summon the motivation and all that, but I definitely do feel like I was able to build up steam again, and even though it's been going slowly, it's been going steadily. I actually am hoping to finish it up this morning. I just have one more chapter left on that second half to run through before I get that sent off to him, and then we should be able to publish in June, which, a couple months later than I was hoping, but I still, I'm just grateful that I'm able to do it at all, and I do think it's going to be a really good installment, one that people will enjoy, and I'm super excited to hear what readers of the series think of this one. So, hopefully by the next time I talk to y'all, it will be, well on its way to being finished up by the editor, and, then we'll just have to get it sent off to the formatter. So we will see how long that takes, but we're definitely seeing the light at the end of the tunnel on it now. So that's really nice. Number 2, also related to that, the cover is finished. I got the finished, not the text, so the title and the back cover copy and all that is not on it, but the artwork itself is finished. And I'm really excited about this one. As always, my artist did an amazing job, and this really captured what I was looking for in the character on the cover. So I'm sure I'll be revealing that soon. And then while my editor is working on the book itself, I'll get the title and, the text from the spine and all that sort of thing on the cover so that it can actually be fully done and ready to go. Again, Lord willing, next month. So I'm excited to share that with y'all soon. Keep an eye on my social media and you should see a reveal. So number 3, and again, I've had this on my list of things to talk about for several weeks now. So this happened a while ago, but last month, my brother came for a visit and we had a really great time, and it's fun because he is for sure one of my most faithful podcast listeners, a fan of the Firmament series, one of my beta readers, just such a supporter of everything I do. And so we had a great time. And then one suggestion that he made was that it would be so fun to record a podcast episode together and have him as a guest while he was here. And unfortunately, and I loved that idea, absolutely, but I did not get my act together enough to actually do it while he was here, which was super sad. But I thought of a fun way to do that, and so I'm hoping, he's planning to come for another visit this summer, so I am hoping that we will be able to actually make that happen, because when I had my old podcast on my Patreon, I had guests a couple of times, and I really enjoyed it, but I've never done it on this iteration of the podcast, and I think it would be really fun. I would really like to do that, and so we're gonna try to make that happen. So stay tuned for that this summer. We'll see. Number 4, my 5-year-old is still working on learning to read and has been doing really well, but she's been trying to write notes and spell things on her own all the time. And it's just so sweet, but it's so funny because obviously, she's just barely learning how to read. And so she just has no idea. And it's just always, almost always, so off. But a lot of times, I can still tell what she's trying to say. And so, like, for instance, a couple days ago, she wrote something and held it up. She's like, "Mommy, can you read this?" And it just said SRKS. And I was like, "Does that say circus?" She was just beaming that I could read it. She's like, "Yes." And it was so cute. Or like, she was playing with letter magnets yesterday and she came running. She's like, "Mommy, I spelled tissue," which is such a funny word because I don't even know. We don't call the, like, tissues, like the Kleenex, we don't really call them tissues. And so I don't know what she was referring to when she says tissue or where she heard that, but she spelled it in her mind. And so what she had spelled was TISOO, which again, I think that's pretty good for just barely learning how to read. So I took a picture of her standing next to it. And it was just so cute. Just to see her excited about it. And then my oldest writes me notes all the time. And now her spelling is a lot better, but still, some things like she'll get TH and SH confused and stuff like that. But she just writes me the sweetest notes all the time, just about what she's thinking or wanting or, feeling. And that's how I always was as a kid too. And so it's just sweet to watch and just to watch them sort of enjoying this world of a new form of communication through the written word. And so yeah, I'm enjoying that phase of them learning to read and write, enjoying it a lot. Number 5, this would normally be my currently reading, but I'm not currently reading this anymore because it's been a while, but I still want to talk about it. And that is my last book club book was Here One Moment by Leanne Moriarty. And I had read all of Leanne Moriarty's other books. I'm sure I've talked about them on here before. And this was her most recent one that just came out last fall. So I was the one that suggested it to book club, and I made the food for it and all that. And I really enjoyed it. And as with all her books, I was really kind of fascinated by how she builds suspense, just by the way she chooses to reveal things. And I've talked about that strategy many times before on here, but just, not revealing things in a straightforward way, but kind of drawing out the suspense and the tension and the mystery by strategically choosing what you show and when. And there's sort of there's several different storylines, but there's one that's stands apart from the rest as far as timeline, and the way she does that is interesting. And it's slowly you learn more and more, and there's sort of basically the premise, and this is right at the beginning, this isn't a spoiler, is all these people are on an airplane, and this lady stands up and starts predicting when and how everyone on the airplane is going to die. And nobody knows, like, what is happening, who is this lady, why is she doing this, is this real, is it not real, etc. And then it's like, people now have that in their heads and wondering, and you kind of are drawn out through the book of being like yourself wondering, is this supposed to be real? Is this some kind of psychic, supernatural thing, or is this supposed to be, or who is this lady and why did she do it? Just like all that. And you're kind of back and forth about, is there something to it? Is there not? Like, what is the solution going to be? Like, why did this happen? And do the characters actually, should they actually take this seriously? Like, all that. And so I just, again, of course, as a writer, I'm always interested when reading to see those techniques and think about how I can implement those kinds of things. And just, again, I've talked about this so much, I know, but just the way, like, you could have the same information and there's so many multiple ways you can show it and different order you can tell it in and things like that. And it will have such a huge impact on the way the story goes and the way the person feels reading it and all of that. So, yeah, it was a good one. And also, I just appreciated that, like, again, it was just written last year, so very modern. And yet, unlike most modern secular books, I did not feel like it was like pushing any kind of agenda. I didn't feel like I had to worry that, like, so we read, and I actually chose not to read this one, but my book club read another book in December that dealt with, people knowing how long they're going to live and stuff like that. And I didn't read it because one of my friends who was reading it told me there's just so much kind of like woke agenda type stuff in it. Like there was just, multiple LGBT characters. It was very like Christians bad, vaccines good. Like, I don't know, just a whole lot of those things. And, I can read stuff I don't agree with. There's stuff in the Here One Moment that I don't agree with too. But it was more like just the tone was excessive, and that's just annoying to me. So, I only have so much reading time, so I opted not to read that one. But this, I felt it was kind of refreshing. Like, it was just an interesting, thought-provoking story. It makes you think about, would you want to know when you're going to die and what are the pros and cons? And, just it was a good book club discussion because of that too. So anyway, interesting book. I'm sure, like, again, there's still some content in it that I wouldn't necessarily recommend, but it was interesting and enjoyable and thought-provoking. So number 6, and this involves what I'm actually currently reading, which is The Heart of the Family by Elizabeth Gouge. And I believe I know I talked about the first book in her series, which is A Bird in the Tree, and then the second is Pilgrim's Inn, and then I'm finally getting to the third one, and I just find her writing so delightful and enchanting in a way. Like, I'm on a quest to read all of her books now. And one thing I'm really noticing a lot as I'm reading this one, and this is something I feel like is hard to do, but I don't know, it's very, I admire the skill when I see it done well, and I feel like it really adds something to a book. And that is where this book isn't in first person, but and it goes, it'll go through different people's heads, throughout the book. Multiple different characters, you'll be seeing sort of what they're thinking and feeling and processing and all of that. But even though, and it'll be very intimately from that person's perspective while you're, in their head. And yet I feel like each person, you are understanding sort of through their eye. Even though you're seeing through their eyes, you are able to understand more about them than they do about themselves, if that makes sense. Like, I feel like, none of us have a perfectly honest picture of ourselves. We all just have certain ways that I don't know, you never have a perfectly objective vision of yourself, and there are things that other people will see, especially those that know us really well, that we kind of don't. And when those things can come through in a story, and not with the writer telling you like, well, she actually blah, 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 but the characters telling you their thoughts, and yet you still are able to sort of see behind the curtain of their subjectivity and see an added truth about them that they themselves don't see. And that to me is just amazing. Like, David Copperfield by Dickens is one of the ones that I feel does this most, impressively. But I'm seeing it a lot in this series. And I just love that. Like, I love seeing sort of this full complex picture of who people are through a story. And I just aspire to that, to being able to show more just through kind of the reader's observation of the character, show more about who they are than they're actually revealing. But anyway, I just enjoying that and really enjoying Gouge's writing and looking forward to more of it. So thank you all so much for listening. Thank you for being patient with me as I've had to postpone recording for quite a few weeks. We'll see how it goes from here. I'm still kind of needing to prioritize sleep right now. But I also do want to kind of find some momentum and all that with writing and the business side of things. And I have some more stuff related to that I'll want to talk about probably in the next episode, just with goal setting and priorities. So stay tuned for that, and I'll try to be back soon. And let me know if you have any thoughts about any of this. If you've read Here One Moment, or I know there's a lot of other books that kind of have that, characters knowing when they're going to die and how that affects their lives. Like, do you like that kind of story? Have you read any good ones? And then have you noticed that in some stories where you kind of, even being sort of in a character's head, you can still see something about them that they don't see about themselves? Have you ever noticed that, and what are some books you feel do it well, because I want to read them. So I am going to try to get a little writing done this morning after this, so hopefully I'm able to finish up the book, and I will update you all next time. So thank you again so much for listening. Hope that everyone has a great day and a great weekend ahead, and stay improbable. Bye!